You are listening to the Planned Routine podcast, where you will explore all kinds of techniques, different ideas, and personal experiences related to productivity, building habits, learning projects, and so much more. If that sounds interesting to you, then keep listening. And now I leave you with your host, Hussam Malam.
Hey listener, thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time being here on this podcast, then you're absolutely in the right place, because in the next couple of minutes, I will explain what this podcast is about. Basically, Planned Routine is an idea that came to existence in order to tackle a fundamental issue of the human experience. How can we make the most of our time? You can pause the podcast and ponder on this question. You can come up with really interesting answers. As for me, I already took my time, and my answer was, since we have a limited time on Earth, we need to make sure that we develop a healthy and meaningful routine to live by. We become deliberately productive and proactive, and being a lifelong learner and constantly upgrading our practical skills to reach personal satisfaction and excellence to actualize the human potential to the maximum. Well, that only answers half of the question though, because now that we have 3 clear areas that we can devote ourselves to, finding how to is the starting point to begin living a conscious and intentional life. But this is not something you answer, but rather you do till you find what works for you. Hence, my work will be focused on 3 core elements: building habits, maximizing productivity, and following a continuous structured learning, aka learning project. Let's get in each one in a bit of detail, shall we? Building habits. I will be your guide in a very long journey where I share my documented process of building habits. Each month, I will try to review my system, add some rules or habits if needed, as a way of experimenting and expanding the list of habits I can do on a daily basis. However, by taking this approach, some of the rules may work, others may not. But why doing that, you might ask? Simply because it's important to share a non-edited experience, because for me, habits are like having your own unique lab where you can run a lot of your experiments that lead to different results. Surely we aim at the positive results, but we have to acknowledge that there are so many factors that affect the way you approach and do habits. But nevertheless, it is a fun process, and in my humble opinion, a healthy and realistic one to build habits. So, if you're like me, after doing habits for months, you will come to this conclusion that building habits is nothing but going through a refining cycle that ultimately improves the likelihood of doing habits again and again. My long-term goal of this work is to develop a sustainable habit system that allows me and my audience to build a sustained routine that cannot be easily broken. It should become your second nature. So, the next main topic, it would be maximizing productivity. Who doesn't want to have a better focus, amazing planning skills, and tools that help you to kick off the tasks and get them done? I bet everyone in need of such skills. Well, I got you covered. I love experimenting with different productivity tools and share my detailed analysis on their efficiency. I will try to build a coherent system that sets you in a work mode, which I'm not there yet, honestly speaking, because it is a refining process. But like with building habits, the point of sharing is showing and documenting the process as it is, with its flaws and with its successes, so that it might be a useful reference point for other people to see the improvements that I had firsthand, which makes it a believable process, I guess, rather than following an expert and trying to compare yourself to them, thinking, this may be impossible to follow because they just happen to have the right genes to be a productivity guru. This approach is not very useful at all. So relax, I'm just a normal person with a little bit of obsession about being productive, and by no means I know more about productivity than you. At the end of the day, my goal is trying my best to build a productivity system in hope that it helps others to become productive and successful in whatever they're doing. Since the principles should remain the same, it's only the implementation that differs from one case to another. The third core subject is learning projects. I believe we all love learning different things. This is something that we innately born with, and it is the driving force that makes us explore the world and make sense out of it. Sadly, the older we get, the less we are inclined to learn new things. And that happens for plenty of reasons, ranging from lack of time to lack of patience, especially when we are faced with difficulty. If you're like me, maybe after hearing some amazing work done by guitarists, you just want to learn how to play the guitar. Maybe you want to be a full stack web developer, but the price that you have to pay time-wise is probably high. So let's be honest, how many times you wanted to learn something and you only end up giving up on it after a while? You can do the counting, it's many and many failed experiments. Speaking of which, personally, I had my big share of plenty of unfinished learning goals. That Forex training course I started 10 years ago, well, I never finished it. The graphic design course that I started with my friend back in 2020, well, 15 days later, we dropped it. What about 2016? In that year, I remember vividly, I wanted to learn Japanese, and learning Japanese was very exciting activity that I did back then. Learning 3 different alphabets, not the entire third alphabet, of course, which is the Chinese characters. I only managed to remember 300 characters. Also, I managed to commit hundreds of vocab and phrases to memory. And it's really exciting for me to learn a complete different language compared to the languages that I already know. So yeah, things were exciting, especially when you learn how to have basic conversations. But then it gets difficult and boring and you drop the learning altogether. There are endless of other courses as well that I started from great courses, company, Udemy, LinkedIn, you name it. I can keep going. The examples are endless, but they are all share the same underlying issue, which is a low commitment that is clearly killing our progress toward our goals. So in order to solve this aforementioned issue, I'll be sharing my learning projects of different topics and skills. This learning project is a method shared by the author and blogger Scott H. Young. So I'm going to use it with my own edited approach. The main point of using this method is having a framework that helps you to fully commit to your final goal by working on it on a weekly basis till you hit the target's goal. Sounds like a common sense? It is, but then the planning process is the most important aspect of this strategy, which is not everybody is good at. For instance, at the time of recording this audio, I'll be talking about a learning project on an episode in the next few days. So stay tuned for that. So in a nutshell, whenever I share a learning project with you, I'll make a weekly or bi-weekly updates for my progress on the materials used in the learning projects. That way you can know exactly if I'm still on track, and at the same time you get to learn new things that I share from these materials with you. My point of including learning project is, like I mentioned, to help myself progress in life and build a lot of skills and knowledge that helps me to actualize my life. And also to inspire you to start your own learning projects as well. We're simply using the learning project that I do. So in case you might thinking there will be a few of them, no, there are going to be a lot of learning projects that I'm going to share with you in the near future, which of course will cover a lot of topics and skills. So stay tuned for that. Besides the 3 main core topics, I'll be covering some book and course summaries related to habits and productivity, but they are not necessarily part of the learning projects, which can be workout courses like a yoga course that I finished, and I would like to share my experience with it so they can learn about its pros and cons. Another example would be reading a productivity book, and I'm just going to talk about it and what kind of benefits it does provide. So making this place as the most resourceful place for learning about different techniques about habits and productivity is my top priority. So I just like to make this journey of building healthy and productive habits more exciting, refreshing, and easy for you as well. To recap, going back to the first question we asked, how do we make the most out of our time? Well, everything we do in a way or another is a formed habit. And we know that a lot of habits aren't good. So in order to build good habits and eliminate bad ones, we need to start doing habits using effective techniques. Some of those habits can be life-changing, such as learning skills and different domains of knowledge. Hence, learning is extremely important. And using the learning project technique is very useful, especially that it's built on productivity principles that helps us go faster through the learning process and make it habitual. Therefore, learning how to be productive and knowing how to build habits alongside doing the learning projects is definitely gonna be something that gonna make the most of our time. That was it for today. Hopefully you got a general idea of what this podcast is about. Surely there could be some tweaks that can happen in the future, but at least the main topics that talked about in this podcast should be covered still, because that's what the Planned Routine blog and podcast is built upon. I'm signing out. I will see you in the next episode.
You have been listening to the Planned Routine podcast. If you liked the episode, please make sure that you subscribe to the show and share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to check out our website, PlannedRoutine.com. Until the next time, stay healthy and productive.